Joining me on the show right now, U.S. Senator John Cornyn. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. Good to be with you. I'm doing great.
Well, glad to have you on the show. It's a busy day for you and your fellow senators in Washington. The nuclear option has happened, and we will have a new Supreme Court justice today, correct?
That's right. Starting at 11:30, we'll vote in Eastern Time, 10:30 Central Time, and I would suspect 30 minutes after the vote starts, we'll have him confirmed. Really, this represents a restoration of the way that the Senate always handled Supreme Court nominations. There's never been a partisan filibuster of a Supreme Court nominee until yesterday. But this returns us full circle to the way things were before the George W. Bush administration, before Chuck Schumer and his allies in the liberal left cooked up this idea that you could raise the confirmation requirement from a majority, which the Constitution requires, to 60. So I think we've gone full circle.
Do you fear, I know some of your colleagues, including Senator McCain, said that this may come, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but basically this may come back to bite the Republicans in the future. Do you feel the same way, or do you think that maybe this will add even more emphasis on the Supreme Court when you have a president or a presidential election happening?
Well, I don't want to get too far down in the weeds, Chad, but there are really two separate what we call calendars in the Senate. One is the nominations calendar or executive calendar. The other is legislation. I think what Senator McCain is concerned about is that somehow we will begin to erode the 60-vote cloture requirement in legislation. It doesn't apply, in my view, in nominations because you can't amend a nomination to make it any more acceptable or build consensus. It's either up or down. And I'm confident that the Senate will remain always the place where, according to this old story, maybe apocryphal between Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, he asked Jefferson, said, "What's the purpose of the Senate?" He said, "Well, the Senate is really this cooling saucer into which you slosh your hot tea and cool it off and make good, well-thought-out decisions." I think that important role for the Senate and unique role for the Senate is still going to be very important and hopefully is not in any jeopardy.
Do you think Democrats overplayed their hand on this?
Absolutely. I think if they'd been smart, Chad, what they would have done, this is basically maintains the status quo on the Supreme Court in terms of the balance between the left and the right. And but the next one will change it, and who knows who that will be, whether it's Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Anthony Kennedy. I think it would have been harder for us to get 52 Republicans to invoke the so-called nuclear option 6 months or a year from now than it was now. But it became clear that the left, the Sanders and the Warren wing of the Democratic Party were not going to allow Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, or any other Democrat for that matter, to let Neil Gorsuch go. And if they wouldn't confirm somebody the quality of Neil Gorsuch, they would not vote to confirm any of President Trump's nominees.
Senator, want to ask you about last night's actions taken by President Trump and the administration, the strikes on Syria. What are your thoughts overall?
Well, I think it represents a wise move by the president and his administration. You'll recall in 2013 the red line for chemical attacks that never had consequences because President Obama basically walked away from it. What we've seen, Chad, during the Obama administration is that weakness is a provocation in and of itself to the tyrants, the bullies, the dictators around the world, whether they be the theocrats in Iran, Putin in Russia, Kim Jong-un in North Korea, or Bashar al-Assad in Syria. And now 400,000 civilian deaths later in Syria with an incredibly complex, messy situation there. I think it's important that the United States send a message. But this is really just the beginning of the conversation. And I realize that what General Petraeus once said in a hearing I attended, he said the most important question in armed conflict that you need to be able to answer is how does this end? And that's the conversation we're going to have with the administration and Congress and hopefully build support for a policy that the American people can support.
We have about a minute and a half left. Does the president, if he's going to go further into this conflict with Syria, does he need to come to Congress first?
I think he does. Under the War Powers Act, he has to send a notice to Congress here pretty quickly and notifying us of the legal authority under which he has acted unilaterally. And I think he can make that case, but going further, it's going to require literally the consensus building between the administration and the Congress, which is not easy by any means. But I think, our men and women in harm's way deserve to have the country behind them, and the only way you can do that is when Congress and the administration and the American people come together and say, we believe in this policy, and we support the men and women in harm's way who are carrying it out.
Senator Cornyn, appreciate your time today. We're going to go ahead and let you go. I know you have a busy day in Washington, and I think it's going to be a good day for those who appreciate the Constitution. I think it's
Absolutely.
going to be a good one.
Thanks, Chad. I agree.
Thank you, Senator. That's Senator John Cornyn here on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, KFYO.